30 minutes. That's all it takes to flip your entire health trajectory, and you don't even have to break a sweat. But here's what nobody tells you. There are 8 specific changes that kick in when you commit to daily walks, and the one most people mess up has nothing to do with distance or calories. Ignore it, and you're just burning time. So what happens when you walk every day, and what have you been getting wrong all this time? Walking isn't just a way to get from point A to point B, it's a biological signal that resets almost every system in your body. When you stop moving, your body starts to dismantle itself. Your arteries stiffen, your brain literally shrinks, and your blood sugar starts running the show. And speaking of sugar, let's talk about that 3 p.m. crash. We've all been there, staring at the pantry like a zombie, convinced we need that chocolate bar to survive the afternoon. You might think this is just a lack of willpower, but it's actually a physiological hijack. Here's the fix. Researchers at the University of Exeter found that a 15-minute walk can curb cravings for chocolate and sugary snacks by a massive amount. It didn't just reduce the desire to eat, it reduced the amount people ate by half when put in a stressful situation. Your brain's craving center is like a toddler throwing a tantrum for candy. Sitting still is like ignoring the toddler. The screaming just gets louder. Walking is like handing that toddler a puzzle. It distracts the brain's reward center, flooding it with dopamine from movement instead of sugar. So the next time you feel that urge, don't white knuckle it. Just walk. And that's just the surface. Wait until you hear what walking does to your actual DNA, which brings us to one of the most common excuses of all time. It's just my genetics. We look at our parents or grandparents and think, well, they were heavy, so I'm destined to be heavy. It's a comforting lie, but science says otherwise. A massive Harvard study looked at over 12,000 people to see how much our genes actually control our destiny. They focused on 32 specific genes that are known to promote obesity. These are the genes that tell your body to store fat like it's preparing for a famine that never comes. Here's the crazy part. For the people who walked briskly for about an hour a day, the effect of those weight-promoting genes was cut in half. Literally cut in half. You are essentially pressing the mute button on your own DNA. Imagine your genetics are a stereo blasting gain weight at volume 10. Walking reaches over and turns that dial down to a 5. You can't change the genes you were born with, but you can absolutely change how loud they are. And weirdly enough, this whole compression-decompression thing your body does while walking, turns out it fixes something most people think is permanently broken. But we'll get to that later. Now, muting your fat genes is great, but before we move on, I want you to understand something vital. The people who stay lean, strong, and injury-free for decades have built bodies that are resilient, not just strong. That's the piece most people miss, and it's the entire focus of the blueprint I created. It's loaded with the overlooked exercises that build stability and mobility so you can keep getting stronger without those nagging aches holding you back. It's the complete guide to getting your body moving and feeling the way you want it to, and you can scan the QR code on the screen with your phone, or check the link in the description below. If I told you there was a pill that could make you 16 years younger, you'd pay a fortune for it. Well, you don't need a pill. All you need is a pair of sneakers and a little bit of speed. Researchers at the University of Leicester analyzed genetic data from over 400,000 people and found something incredible about telomeres. Telomeres are like those little plastic caps at the end of your shoelaces, but for your DNA. Every time your cells divide, those caps get shorter. When they get too short, the cell dies. It's basically the wick on your candle of life. The study found that brisk walkers, people who moved fast enough to get slightly out of breath, had significantly longer telomeres than slow walkers. The difference in biological age was equivalent to about 16 years. That means 2 guys could both be 45 according to their birth certificates, but the guy who walks briskly has the cells of a 29-year-old. Speed matters when you're trying to outrun time. And speaking of things nobody talks about, the next one affects a lot of men, but nobody really wants to talk about it. This one hits close to home for a lot of guys as they cross the 40-year mark. ED is the canary in the coal mine for male health. When things start sputtering down there, it's usually a sign that your vascular system is struggling everywhere else. A study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine used a method called Mendelian randomization, which is a fancy way of saying they looked at genetic predictors to rule out other factors and found a strong inverse causal relationship between brisk walking and erectile dysfunction. Specifically, men with a natural propensity for a faster walking pace had a 76% lower risk of dealing with ED. Think of your blood vessels like a complex highway system. Sitting all day is like a traffic jam. Nothing moves and sludge starts to build up. Brisk walking is like opening up the express lanes. It forces your body to produce nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes the inner muscles of your blood vessels, allowing them to widen and increase blood flow. And as we know, blood flow is the name of the game when it comes to performance. Oh, and it doesn't just work below the belt. There's actually a spot in your body where the same principle prevents something way more serious. I'll explain that one in a bit, but for now, if you want to keep the machinery working, you need to take it out for a spin every day. One of the biggest myths in fitness is that exercise wears out your joints, like miles on a car tire. People think, I have bad knees, so I should save them by resting. That's biologically backward. Your cartilage has no blood supply. It doesn't get nutrients from arteries like your muscles do. The only way your cartilage gets fed is through compression and decompression. When you take a step, you squeeze waste products out. When you lift your foot, you suck nutrient-rich synovial fluid in. It's exactly like a sponge. If you leave a wet sponge on the counter for a week, it dries out, gets stiff, and eventually crumbles. That's your knee cartilage when you sit all day. According to the Arthritis Foundation, walking is the WD-40 for your joints. It lubricates the joint capsule and strengthens the muscles that support the knee. If your knees hurt, the answer usually isn't less movement, it's better movement. Ever notice that you get your best ideas in the shower or while driving? That's because your brain relaxes. But walking takes this to a whole new level. Researchers at Stanford measured divergent thinking, the scientific term for coming up with creative ideas. They compared people sitting against people walking on a treadmill. The results were a landslide. Walkers increased their creative output by an average of 60%. When you're sitting and staring at a screen, your brain is in focus mode, like a spotlight. It's great for spreadsheets, but terrible for big picture thinking. Walking switches your brain into wide-angle mode. It allows different parts of your brain to connect that normally don't. It's why Steve Jobs was famous for his walking meetings. If you're stuck on a problem, stop staring at the monitor, get up and walk. The answer is usually about 10 minutes away. This next one sounds impossible, but the mechanics are undeniable. Walking saves your eyesight. Glaucoma is a condition where pressure builds up inside the eyeball, eventually damaging the optic nerve and causing blindness. It's often called the silent thief of sight. The Glaucoma Research Foundation has highlighted that regular moderate exercise like walking can significantly lower intraocular pressure. It's all about fluid dynamics. Just like walking helps regulate blood pressure in your arms and legs, it helps regulate the pressure of the fluids inside your eye. Think of your eye like a balloon. If you overinflate it, the material stretches and eventually fails. Walking acts like a release valve, keeping that pressure in the safe zone. It's a simple mechanical fix for a complex problem. You are literally walking away from blindness. Also, I send out solid, actionable tips every week in my newsletter. No spam, just the good stuff. You can join the group by using the link in the description. The most terrifying part of aging is arguably the brain shrinking, specifically the hippocampus. This is the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning. After age 50, it tends to shrink by about 1 to 2% every year. That's why you start forgetting where you put your keys or what you walked into the room for. But a landmark study led by Dr. Kirk Erickson at the University of Pittsburgh showed that this isn't inevitable. They took a group of older adults and had them walk for 40 minutes, 3 times a week, for a year. The result? Their hippocampuses didn't shrink, they actually grew by 2%. That might sound small, but in neurological terms, it's massive. It's effectively reversing the brain's aging clock by 1 to 2 years. You are physically building more brain matter. You are building a buffer against dementia and Alzheimer's with every single step. And remember that thing I mentioned at the start about what most people get wrong? Here's where it all comes together. So now that you know the why, we need to talk about the how. Most people fail because they treat walking like a leisurely stroll through the park. If you want the gene-muting, life-extending benefits, you need to follow the FIT formula. First, frequency. Don't treat it like a workout. Make it a hygiene habit, like brushing your teeth. You wouldn't skip brushing your teeth for 3 days, would you? So don't skip your walk. Second, and most importantly, intensity. You need to pass the talk test. You should be walking fast enough that you can hold a conversation, but you shouldn't be able to sing a song. If you can belt out your favorite Taylor Swift hook, you're walking too slow. If you're gasping for air and can't make a full sentence, you're going too fast. Find that sweet spot right in the middle. Now for the time, aim for 30 minutes. That seems to be the threshold where all the biological magic starts to happen. Your body is designed to move. It craves it. Every system, from your DNA to your eyeballs, is waiting for that signal. So give it to them. And remember, if you want the full manual on how to rebuild your body from the ground up so you can keep moving pain-free, that guide is the whole blueprint. Check it out in the description below. Now go take a walk.